Hi everyone. Today we're going to dive into a story so eerie and fascinating you probably won't survive hearing all the chilling details. Imagine standing on a foggy Scandinavian coastline, the salty wind cutting through your cloak as the ancient Vikings prepare a ceremony that seems both terrifying and sacred. This isn't just any ritual, it involves human bones, remnants of the dead, woven deeply into their rites and customs. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know who's brave enough to listen in. The Viking Age, spanning roughly from 793 to 1066 AD, is famous for fierce warriors, long ships that conquered seas, and a culture steeped in mythology and ritual. But beneath the well-known tales lies a shadowy world of ancient practices where death and the dead played a crucial role in life. Archaeologists have uncovered sites scattered across northern Europe where human bones were not simply discarded or buried quietly, but were carefully collected, displayed, and used in ceremonial contexts. These findings are shaking up what we thought we knew about Viking culture. In places like Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, excavations have revealed bone fragments arranged in patterns that suggest intentional placement, some in circular formations around hearths, others embedded in wooden structures. These were no random acts. Bones of ancestors and enemies alike were powerful symbols, thought to hold spiritual energy and link the living to their lineage, or intimidate foes, even in death. For the Vikings, the dead were far from gone. They lingered as active participants in the world of the living. One such discovery was the site of a longhouse in Denmark, where archaeologists found a carefully constructed bone altar. Here, human femurs were carved with intricate designs and set upright in a semicircle. Experts believe this altar was central to religious rites, honoring the dead, or calling on ancestral spirits. The bones likely belonged to revered elders or fallen warriors, whose spirits the Vikings sought to appease or invoke for protection. This altar was a place of both respect and power, a stark reminder that bones were more than just physical remains. They were conduits to the supernatural. Interestingly, Viking literature and sagas, passed down orally before being written centuries later, also hint at these bone-related rituals. Stories speak of shamans or seers who would hold bones during divinations, using the shape and markings to glimpse the future or commune with the gods. Bones were also used in oath ceremonies, where warriors swore allegiance over the relics of the dead, binding their promises with the weight of ancestral authority. These practices underscore a worldview where death was a transition rather than an end, and human remains were sacred artifacts infused with meaning. But why human bones? In a culture often portrayed as brutal and warlike, the use of human remains might seem grotesque or barbaric. Yet this was deeply intertwined with Viking values of honor, ancestry, and connection to the divine. Bones were the ultimate relics of identity, sturdy, enduring, and unmistakably tied to a person's essence. To possess and display them was to wield the power of that person beyond their life, asserting dominance or seeking protection. In fact, some Viking tribes would gather bones from their fallen enemies and integrate them into ceremonial objects or monuments, turning their victories into lasting symbols of power. This served not only to honor their own dead, but also to demoralize opponents, sending a message that death in battle was permanent subjugation, and that the victor could command even the remains of the defeated. Such displays reinforced social hierarchies and warrior culture, where bravery and conquest dictated status. The archaeological record supports this with finds like bone carvings featuring runes or protective symbols, believed to ward off evil spirits or enhance magical properties. These artifacts suggest that human bones were treated with a ritualistic reverence akin to sacred relics. Some bones were carefully polished and shaped into amulets or charms worn by warriors and chieftains, believed to grant them strength and guidance in battle. This merging of the physical and spiritual realms through human remains was a defining feature of Viking ritual life. This connection between bones and spirituality extended beyond death and battle. In everyday life, bones played a role in rites marking transitions, such as births, marriages, or seasonal festivals. Bones from revered ancestors might be brought out during such times to bless the community or invoke fertility and prosperity. This practice reflects a broader animistic belief system where everything in nature, including the dead, held vital spiritual force. Human bones, as the most durable vestiges of identity, naturally became focal points for such beliefs. Yet, despite the reverence, the use of bones was not without ambiguity. Some Viking communities also feared the restless dead, spirits who could haunt the living or cause misfortune. The bones, therefore, needed to be properly treated, sanctified, or even controlled through rituals to ensure they did not unleash malevolent forces. This duality highlights the complex relationship Vikings had with mortality. Bones were at once symbols of honor and potential sources of dread. By unearthing these ancient rituals and the physical remains tied to them, modern researchers gain a glimpse into a Viking worldview that is at once brutal, spiritual, and deeply symbolic. Human bones were not mere leftovers of death, but active, potent objects that shaped how Vikings lived, fought, and understood their place in the cosmos. This revelation challenges the simplistic notion of Vikings as mere raiders and invites us to appreciate their rich cultural tapestry, woven with threads of fear, respect, and mystery. The Viking Age was not only an era of fierce battles and legendary explorations, but also a period of remarkable craftsmanship, especially in how the Vikings repurposed materials from their environment, including the human bones of both foes and kin. You might be surprised to learn that human bones were transformed into functional and symbolic artifacts, weapons, and even personal adornments. This use of human bones was not mere macabre curiosity. It was deeply practical and culturally significant, reflecting a society where survival and symbolism were intricately entwined. Archaeologists have uncovered numerous examples of bone tools crafted by Viking hands. Among these, human bones were sometimes chosen over animal bones for their durability and density, particularly long bones like femurs and tibias, which could be fashioned into needles, combs, and even handles for knives or axes. These items were more than just everyday objects. They often bore intricate carvings or runic inscriptions that elevated them into the realm of sacred or status symbols. One of the most fascinating aspects of bone tool production was the artistry involved. Viking craftsmen carved detailed patterns into bone, ranging from simple geometric shapes to complex knotwork typical of Norse art. Some bone tools discovered in burial sites bear the marks of personal stories or prayers, indicating that these objects were believed to carry protective powers or convey the owner's identity and status even in the afterlife. Weaponry made with human bone components is another compelling discovery. While metal was the primary material for blades and spearheads, bone was often used for parts such as arrow shafts, bow grips, or spear shafts reinforcing tips. Some warriors preferred bone components for their flexibility and lightness, which could mean the difference between life and death in combat. Archaeological finds have included bone arrowheads that were carefully shaped and hardened, suggesting an advanced understanding of material properties. A particularly striking artifact type is the bone knife handle. These were often made from polished human bones, sometimes engraved with runes or symbols believed to imbue the weapon with magical qualities. The choice of human bone for such a personal and deadly tool reflects a Viking belief that the power of the dead could be harnessed and transferred to the living. The bone handle was not just a grip, it was a talisman, a piece of spiritual armor. In addition to tools and weapons, human bones were fashioned into ornaments worn as jewelry or amulets. Beads carved from small bones were threaded into necklaces or bracelets, and larger pieces were shaped into pendants or charms. Some Viking grave sites have revealed such items, indicating their importance in both life and death. Wearing these bone ornaments was thought to provide protection against harm or to keep the wearer connected to their ancestors' strength and wisdom. The process of carving and shaping human bones required skill and patience. Viking artisans used specialized tools, flint or metal knives, files, and abrasives, to smooth and sculpt the bone surface. This meticulous work was often accompanied by rituals or prayers, underlining the spiritual significance of the objects created. In this way, the making of bone artifacts was itself a form of ritual, binding the craftsman, the material, and the spiritual realm in a single act. Historical accounts and sagas also illuminate the symbolic use of bone-crafted items. Some Viking chieftains were said to carry bone amulets as symbols of their lineage and legitimacy. Others used bone artifacts in ceremonies to seal agreements or to swear oaths, invoking the authority of the ancestors whose remains were shaped into these powerful tokens. The very act of holding a bone tool or weapon was a reminder of the warrior's connection to their heritage and the spiritual forces that guided them. One legendary example is the story of a Viking smith who forged a sword with a bone handle taken from a revered ancestor. The sword was said to carry the spirit of that ancestor into battle, granting courage and unyielding strength. Such tales emphasize the belief that bones were vessels of power, linking the mortal and divine worlds in ways metal alone could not. Human bones also appeared in the construction and decoration of Viking homes and halls. Fragments were embedded in furniture, walls, and ceremonial thrones, not only for decoration, but as symbols of protection. These bones reminded inhabitants of the presence of their ancestors and the protection they offered against evil spirits or enemies. The placement of bones in key architectural elements was carefully planned, reflecting deep-seated beliefs about the spiritual landscape of Viking dwellings. In some cases, human bones were shaped into musical instruments or ritual implements. Bone whistles, flutes, and rattles have been found in Viking burial sites, suggesting their use in ceremonies to summon spirits or to communicate with the divine. The haunting sound of a bone flute would have added a chilling, otherworldly atmosphere to Viking rituals, connecting participants with the spirit world. Despite the practical uses, not all human bones were treated with reverence. Some were purposefully mutilated or altered as acts of domination over enemies. For example, skulls might be fashioned into drinking cups or helmets, a terrifying practice intended to invoke fear and assert supremacy. While controversial, such uses were documented in various sagas and archaeological finds, illustrating the complex and sometimes brutal ways bones were integrated into Viking life. The craftsmanship and spiritual symbolism surrounding human bone artifacts paint a vivid picture of Viking society as one where the physical and spiritual were inseparable. Every bone tool, weapon, or ornament carried layers of meaning, connecting the owner to their community, ancestors, and the gods. This blending of utility and mysticism reveals a culture deeply engaged with death and remembrance, where bones were not just remains, but living symbols of power and identity. Understanding this aspect of Viking life challenges modern perceptions of them as mere raiders and pillagers. Instead, it reveals a people who wove the tangible and intangible into a complex social fabric, using the bones of the dead to create objects that carried stories, beliefs, and magic. This legacy continues to fascinate and haunt us, reminding us that history often lies in the most unexpected and profound details. The Viking world is rich with stories of kings and chieftains whose power was not only demonstrated through sword and shield, but also through symbols that struck fear and commanded respect. One of the most extraordinary and unsettling legends that have survived through sagas and oral history is that of the Bone Throne, a seat of power literally constructed from human bones. This throne wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was an emblem of dominance, conquest, and the intertwining of life, death, and leadership in Viking society. The idea of a bone throne has fascinated historians and storytellers alike. According to various sagas, certain Viking leaders would claim their right to rule by sitting upon thrones built from the bones of their greatest enemies or the most revered ancestors. These thrones served as a physical reminder of the ruler's might and the cost of defying them. More than that, they symbolized the ruler's command over life and death, reflecting a society where authority was as much spiritual and symbolic as it was military. In several historical sites across Scandinavia, archaeologists have found bone fragments embedded in ceremonial hall floors or under throne-like structures. While direct evidence of a full bone throne remains elusive, these findings strongly support the existence of such macabre power symbols. The bones were often arranged in patterns or carved with runic inscriptions, suggesting intentional design to amplify their symbolic weight. One famous legend tells of a Viking king who, after a decisive victory, ordered the bones of defeated rivals to be collected and fashioned into a throne, which he then used during feasts and councils. The king's enemies believed that sitting on this throne bound the ruler to the spirits of the dead, granting him their strength and wisdom, but also their wrath. It was said that those who dared challenge the king's authority risked awakening the restless spirits beneath him. The bone throne symbolized more than raw power. It represented the fusion of political leadership and spiritual authority. Viking rulers were often seen as intermediaries between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. By physically incorporating human bones into their thrones, they visually and ritually reinforced this role. The throne became a sacred object that connected the king to his ancestors and the divine, legitimizing his rule through ancestral power. Moreover, the bone throne was part of larger rituals conducted in the Viking halls. During important ceremonies, such as the calling of councils or the celebration of victories, the ruler would sit on this throne, surrounded by warriors and nobles. The presence of human bones sent a powerful message. The ruler was not only a warrior, but also a guardian of tradition, justice, and supernatural forces. This aura of power helped maintain order and command loyalty in a turbulent and often violent society. Sagas and oral traditions also describe the throne as a site where oaths were sworn and justice was meted out. The bones beneath the ruler's seat were believed to witness these solemn acts, ensuring truth and fairness. Breaking an oath made before the bone throne was thought to invite curses and misfortune, binding individuals to their promises with the weight of death itself. Interestingly, the bone throne symbolism extended to the idea of fate and the cyclical nature of life and death. In Norse cosmology, death was not an end, but a transition to other worlds, such as Valhalla or Helheim. The throne, made of bones, embodied this continuum, reminding all who saw it that life and death were intertwined and that the ruler wielded power over both realms. The psychological impact of the bone throne cannot be overstated. For Viking warriors and subjects, it was a visceral reminder of mortality, power, and loyalty. The sight of a throne crafted from human bones would have instilled awe and fear, reinforcing the social hierarchy and deterring rebellion. This physical manifestation of conquest and ancestral reverence was both a tool of governance and a spiritual anchor. In addition to its political and spiritual functions, the bone throne has captured the imagination of modern popular culture. It appears in novels, films, and video games as a dark, iconic symbol of Viking ruthlessness and mysticism. While these depictions often exaggerate for dramatic effect, they are rooted in real historical beliefs and practices, lending authenticity to their eerie power. Some scholars argue that the bone throne tradition reflects a broader Indo-European motif of rulers sitting upon or surrounded by bones to signify authority. Similar practices appear in other ancient cultures, suggesting a universal human fascination with death, power, and the material remnants of life. The Vikings version, however, stands out for its brutal honesty and close connection to the warrior ethos. In contemporary archaeology, the bone throne serves as a reminder that power in ancient societies was often inseparable from death and the supernatural. It challenges modern sensibilities by forcing us to confront how our ancestors understood leadership, not just as political control, but as a sacred trust linked to the dead and the divine. As ongoing excavations and research continue, we may yet uncover more tangible evidence of these thrones and the complex rituals that surrounded them. Until then, the bone throne remains a potent symbol of Viking culture, both terrifying and fascinating, a testament to a people who ruled with iron, blood, and bone. The Vikings' relationship with death was far from simple. It was a deep and complex tapestry woven from their spiritual beliefs, rituals, and cultural practices. At the core of these was a profound respect for the afterlife, where human bones played a pivotal role as physical and spiritual links between the living and the dead. To understand why Vikings used human bones so prominently, one must delve into their worldview of the cosmos and the journey of the soul. In Norse mythology, death was not the final curtain, but a gateway to other realms, including the glorious halls of Valhalla for warriors, the mysterious underworld of Hell, and other spiritual dimensions. The journey of the soul was believed to be influenced by rites performed by the living, with human bones acting as vital vessels of this transition. Bones were thought to retain the essence or hamingja, luck and fortune, of the deceased, making them sacred carriers of power and memory. Viking burial practices provide compelling evidence of this belief. High-status individuals were often buried with personal belongings, weapons, and sometimes bones of ancestors to aid their journey and maintain their identity beyond death. The treatment of bones after burial was not haphazard. In some cases, bones were exhumed later and used in rituals, emphasizing their enduring spiritual significance. The use of human bones in rituals was also deeply connected to the Vikings' shamanistic traditions. Seers and shamans, known as vulvas, would often employ bones during ceremonies to communicate with spirits or foresee the future. By interpreting the shapes, cracks, or markings on bones, these mystics believed they could unlock hidden knowledge from the spirit world. This practice, known as osteomancy, tied the physical remains directly to divine wisdom. Bones were more than tools for divination. They were considered conduits for contacting ancestors and gods. This belief led to rituals where bones were held, touched, or even worn to invite protection, guidance, and blessings. Warriors might carry bone amulets made from revered forebears, imbuing them with ancestral strength during battle. Such objects symbolized a living connection between past and present, bridging mortal and spiritual realms. The spiritual power attributed to bones extended to the community as a whole. During seasonal festivals, bones from ancestors were sometimes displayed or incorporated into communal ceremonies, reinforcing social cohesion and continuity. These acts reminded the living of their roots and the ongoing presence of their forebears, ensuring that the cycle of life and death remained intact. However, this connection also entailed careful ritual management to avoid spiritual dangers. The Vikings believed that improperly treated bones could become the source of draugr, restless spirits who haunted the living with malevolence. To prevent this, bones used in rituals were often consecrated or symbolically tamed through incantations and offerings. This dual role of bones, as sacred and potentially dangerous, highlights the nuanced spirituality of the Vikings. The belief in the supernatural power of bones influenced how Vikings handled death in daily life. Funerary rites were elaborate affairs designed to honor the deceased and secure their safe passage. The burning or burial of bones with certain rituals was meant to protect both the soul and the community, ensuring that spiritual forces remained balanced. The bones, far from being mere remnants, were living symbols of this balance. Viking art and iconography also reflect these spiritual associations with bones. Bone motifs appear in carvings, jewelry, and weapons, symbolizing protection, power, and connection to the divine. The intricate interlacing patterns common in Norse art often allude to the interwoven nature of life, death, and the spiritual world, with bones serving as a physical anchor to these themes. These beliefs helped Vikings cope with the harsh realities of their world, where death was common and ever-present. By elevating bones to objects of reverence and spiritual potency, they transformed mortality from a source of fear into a powerful connection to their ancestors and gods. This cultural perspective provided meaning and comfort while reinforcing social and religious structures. In essence, human bones in Viking culture were not just physical remains, they were vessels of identity, power, and sacred energy. Their use in rituals and beliefs about the afterlife reveal a worldview where death and life are part of an eternal cycle, connected through the tangible presence of bones. This intricate spiritual relationship challenges modern assumptions and invites a deeper appreciation of Viking cosmology. As modern science and archaeology continue to explore these practices, they uncover the rich symbolism and ritual complexity that surrounded bones in Viking society. Each bone artifact and burial site tells a story of belief, power, and the eternal quest to bridge the mortal and divine. This enduring legacy echoes across centuries, reminding us of a time when bones held the key to life, death, and everything beyond. As modern technology and archaeological methods advance, our understanding of Viking culture and their use of human bones grows clearer and more nuanced than ever before. The revelations about bone use in Viking rituals, weaponry, and symbolism have sparked a renewed fascination in academic circles and among the public alike, reshaping how we perceive these legendary seafarers. Recent scientific techniques such as DNA analysis, radiocarbon dating, and microscopic bone-wear studies have provided fresh insights into the origins, treatment, and purposes of bone artifacts. For example, DNA tests on bone tools have confirmed that many were indeed made from human remains rather than animal bones, corroborating ancient texts and folklore with tangible evidence. This fusion of hard science with myth has opened new pathways for exploring Viking identity and spirituality. Museums across Scandinavia and beyond have curated exhibitions showcasing these bone artifacts, often alongside multimedia presentations that vividly bring Viking rituals to life. Visitors can now see bone combs, amulets, and weapon parts, appreciating not only their craftsmanship, but also their spiritual and social significance. These exhibits challenge the old narrative of Vikings as merely ruthless warriors, highlighting their sophisticated beliefs and artisan skills. The cultural impact of these discoveries extends beyond academic and museum walls. Popular media, films, television series, video games, and novels have embraced the idea of Vikings as deeply connected to death and the supernatural through bones. While dramatized for entertainment, these portrayals draw on authentic historical themes, blending fear, reverence, and mystery in ways that resonate with contemporary audiences. Interestingly, some modern neo-pagan and heathen communities have reclaimed these ancient practices, integrating bone symbolism into their spiritual rituals. By honoring Viking ancestors and their beliefs, these groups keep the legacy of bone use alive in new, meaningful contexts. This contemporary adoption underscores the enduring power of these ancient symbols. Scientific research continues to push boundaries, with ongoing excavations in key Viking sites promising more discoveries. The application of 3D scanning and digital reconstruction allows researchers to piece together fragmented bones and artifacts, offering clearer images of how these items looked and were used. This technology enables a deeper appreciation of the artistry and ritual intent behind bone-crafted objects. Beyond artifacts, the discovery of mass graves and ceremonial sites provides context for bone use in community rituals and warfare. These sites reveal the scale and complexity of Viking funerary customs and the role bones played in marking social status, victory, and spiritual transition. They remind us that Vikings lived in a world where the physical and spiritual were inseparable, and bones were central to this connection. The scholarly dialogue around bone use in Viking culture also challenges long-standing stereotypes. Far from being barbaric or primitive, Vikings emerge as a people with a rich symbolic system that integrated death, ancestry, and power through tangible, crafted objects. This recognition invites a re-evaluation of how we interpret archaeological finds and historical texts, encouraging more empathetic and culturally informed perspectives. The fascination with Viking bones has also sparked ethical discussions in archaeology and museology regarding the treatment of human remains. Balancing scientific inquiry with respect for the dead and descendant communities remains a vital and ongoing concern. These conversations emphasize the importance of handling such findings with sensitivity and cultural awareness. In summary, the modern discoveries and cultural reverberations around Vikings' use of human bones illuminate a civilization where death was not an end, but a powerful presence woven into daily life and leadership. These bones, once silent remnants, now speak volumes about belief, identity, and the human need to connect with the past. As our knowledge expands, so too does the legacy of the Vikings, reminding us that behind their fearsome reputation lies a profound and complex culture. The bones they left behind tell a story of survival, spirituality, and enduring mystery, one that continues to captivate and challenge us today.